Right over there is the so-called war crimes room. And if you think you find Agent Orange there, you are wrong. We have a separate room for that. Jesus fucking Christ. If the title and thumbnail of this video weren't clear enough already, this video discusses small parts of the Vietnam War and some of the war crimes committed during that war. While there won't be any NSFW photos or clips in this video, I might describe things that I saw in a museum that I can't show on YouTube in a somewhat graphic way. You also should keep in mind that whatever is shown in this video is of course information that is on display as chosen by the victor of this horrific war that lasted almost 2 decades, namely Communist North Vietnam. Although I'm not an expert, I have little reason not to believe that the events displayed at this museum are facts. If you don't want to be confronted with images of war, please click away before we enter the building at chapter The Main Building. I will put in another warning just before that chapter as well. Morning.
Morning. Hello.
Morning.
Where are you from?
And that's how you're in. And now we are next to some really old shit. That's oh boy, I like this already. Cool. Well, I should walk around for a bit. Reconnaissance observation plane. Oh, this is a Cessna, look. That is cool. That is a US Army helicopter. And this is a US Army plane. Tank. Another one. And a huge Chinook helicopter. I've seen those before though. All the rivets. Wow, look at that. Really cool. Cut here for emergency rescue. Helicopter. Helicopter. I guess this is what the later Ukrainian Victory Monument and Victory Museum will look like. Only all the shit will be Russian, including that A-50 and all stuff they shot down recently. I would love to visit that one. Oh, that's a flamethrower. That's a nasty piece of shit. Helicopter. Howitzer. Another howitzer, 155mm. That's a NATO standard, if I'm not wrong. That's a turret. I think they didn't get tossed from a tank though. I think it's just dismantled like this because it looks in nice condition. Recoilless rifle. On the right side of the outside area are a number of land vehicles lined up. There are howitzers and towed howitzers as well as Caterpillar bulldozers and the Cadillac 76mm gun tank. We walk past a bell made out of a 500-pound bomb canister before arriving at the F-5A jet fighter produced by Northrop. In a little corner just off the main entrance is a collection of ammunitions that were retrieved and defused before they had the chance to explode. Most of the material here isn't that exciting, for lack of a better word, but there is one main exception. The BLU-82, a seismic bomb with a weight of over 6,800 kilograms that had to be dropped from a C-130. It was nicknamed the Daisy Cutter because it could create a helicopter landing zone with just one large explosion. We are now entering the actual museum building, so if you don't want to be confronted with the horrors of war, please click away within 15 seconds. If you like the display of military equipment the good old US of A left behind, just leave a comment for the algorithm so people can find this video easier. A like would also be helpful. Thank you for your support. The first room we enter is the so-called Room of Vietnamese Heroes, where we find a number of displays telling the personal life stories and their life in the army for North Vietnam, as well as stories about political prisoners by South Vietnam, like female activist Nguyen T.P. Van and others. Being from Western Europe, and only having seen Western movies about the Vietnam War, I will tell you straight away that only one or two names ring a little bell somewhere. What is very helpful is that all information is in Vietnamese as well as in English. You can already see a lot of people actively reading up on some history here, just like I did. Most of the displays will tell you what those people have done in the war and go on to display the little things from their daily life to emphasize that they were just regular people like you and me before they got involved in the war. Nguyen Van Dan used his ox cart to transport the bodies of his daughter and 6 others. These civilians lost their lives during a battle in the outskirts of Saigon in 1968.
The world supports Vietnam. Peace, Frede. Eastern Europe, mostly Soviet nation, of course. As we can see from the banner. And of course, East Germany. Support from Asia. And here also is Indonesia. This one. And it doesn't show any sign of Communist Party, but it was still around 1965. See the Labour Party, the Labour Party here. Americans. Of course, a lot of peace movements. Latin America. Cuba. Who would have thought that? Vietnam is our conscience. Might be Swedish, then Danish.
From this area of the museum, it is clear what support North Vietnam got, and that won't surprise many. The Vietnam War was fought entirely during the Cold War, which of course was clearly felt in most parts of the world around this time. Being an 80s kid myself, I haven't tasted much of the Cold War, except for a bit of history on a trip to Berlin years back. But when observing this propaganda, it is clear that the world hasn't taken a path to better itself. We just don't seem to realize what's going on, which is the scary part.
Entire section of war crimes.
This is only one major room in the building. There's one more, but we'll get to that later. Never in history is a room in a museum called War Crimes a good thing. You can trust me on that. But there's really no going back now. We are welcomed by a set of unexploded and disarmed, I assume, not an expert, 155mm as well as 90mm shells. On the wall are not that graphic but nevertheless scary pictures of what war causes. Many of the photos are in black and white, as that's what people saw in the newspapers back in the day. I've blurred some of the images as they clearly display people killed. Some of them even put side by side, as if they were about to be buried in a mass grave. I can't show those pictures on YouTube and won't show them anyway if I could. From the background sound in the room, you can probably understand why that is. Many of the visitors with me now are quite a bit older than me, a lot of them Americans. It's almost silent in this room, as visitors probably remember those black and white pictures, except now they get to see the why of those pictures as well. The next section of the museum is dedicated to ordnances used by the USA and the result of the use of those. We start off at a map that displays where American ordnances were used, displayed in green. And yes, the biggest part of Vietnam was impacted, North Vietnam the most. The corner around the metal remnants of an exploded shell shows the extensive damage done. But it's not just one corner here, there's much more to see. Outside of photos of destruction and death neatly placed on the walls, one by one, inclusive of their descriptions, there are also a number of displays for ordnance that never got to do its duty. Rifle shells, mortars of different types and even simple bullets are on display here. As there are quite a number of displays, I can't show them all in this video. But scrolling through the photos earlier gave me an impression of the massive use of all kinds of ordnance and ammunition to get those pesky Viet Cong under control, not really looking at what collateral damage had to be inflicted to actually win this war. Mines, shrapnel of huge but frequently used bombs, as well as parts of a B-52 bomber that was shot down over Hanoi on December 27, 1972 during Operation Linebacker 2. The plane was shot down by the North Vietnamese before it had the chance to carry out its bombing raid.
People watching the introduction movie there. Well, over there is the so-called war crimes room. And if you think you find Agent Orange there, you are wrong. We have a separate room for that. Jesus Christ. Those are apparently fetuses. Probably can't show you that, but
On display here is the transport, preparation and eventual use of Agent Orange over Vietnam. Agent Orange was a herbicide used by the US against North Vietnam, but since the dioxin-containing chemical was sprayed out over large areas, it is estimated that some 4 million Vietnamese were exposed to Agent Orange, where a staggering 3 million of them suffered a wide variety of illnesses. Agent Orange was a 50-50 mix of two herbicides. Their chemical names are on the screen now, and no, I won't attempt to pronounce them, of which the second one contained traces, significant though, of TCDD. That dioxin is the most toxic dioxin known and is a known carcinogen, most likely causing a number of types of cancer. Outside of increased risk of cancer, other effects of Agent Orange can be found in children of which the mother was exposed to Agent Orange during pregnancy. Mental disabilities, extra or missing fingers and toes, and cleft palate are among the more common birth defects. The most affected zones are the Truong Son Mountains and part of the border between Vietnam and Cambodia. But Agent Orange was also extensively used at numerous US military bases in the region, as well as elsewhere in the world, although systemic problems from its use seems to be limited outside of Vietnam.
the Requiem Hall.
A dedicated room for war correspondents right here. Wars are deadly, and that is also shown through the stories of journalists and photographers. A number of them were killed during the Vietnam War, while others survived to tell their stories. Upon entering, you'll see that the main sponsors of this room are American companies. Among them United Airlines and UPS, for example. The importance of these donations most likely isn't reflected enough here, as the right to obtain information is constantly under pressure, let alone when reporting has to be done in a bloody war. Although focus of this display is on the results of the dangerous work of photographers and reporters, dozens of sometimes very recognizable pictures are placed on the walls of this room. Attention to the persons behind it is somewhat limited. Yes, there is a list of photographers killed or missing, but the focus is slightly away from the persons involved. It is possible that those returning safely from the war didn't want to be remembered of the horrors after they arrived home safely, which is very understandable, of course. Exceptions are there, of course. Japanese journalist Ishikawa Bunyo, for example, donated his camera and clothing to the War Remnants Museum to tell his story.
Scary. This one is about 2 meters long. Jesus. Let's have to look at the tiger cages.
We've made it to the last section of the museum, or at least I kept this for the end of my visit. What you're seeing here are prisons, but not your regular prisons, in most countries anyway, but prisons where torture was the norm.
That's a guillotine. These are the infamous tiger cages, which were cages surrounded by barbed wire, where people were put into as a punishment. It's possible to sit up straight. If you lie down, you have a back that hurts because of the stones. Oh, Jesus. That looks really scary. There's a dude inside there.
The so-called sunbathing rooms, aka open-air tiger cages, were built by the French in 1940. There were 60 chambers without ceilings, measuring almost 1900 square meters in total. As part of the tiger cages in Condau prison, the area was divided into 4 rows, each of which had 15 chambers.
Shackles to your stay. This is an iron grill where people were forced to roll over.
Sorry?
Without closing, of course. This right here is an open-air prison that will be put into.
The sunbathing rooms were outdoor confinement spaces where prisoners were forced to strip naked, being exposed to the scorching heat or the cold rain during the day or freezing fog at night. Under the rule of the US and the Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnam governments, the sunbathing rooms were the place to dump prisoners' wastes collected from their cells.